Okay, so there's another improvement we want to implement for images. However, before we do that, let's do a little refactoring. So if we look at our steps file, it's getting pretty close to 1,000 lines. Now, this isn't the end of the world. It's not a massive problem yet, but we are about to add a bunch more code to this file. So I think it's good to do some refactoring before we do that to keep things clean and manageable. There's a lot of different ways we could split this up. We could have one file per step, but that might be a bit too granular, given how simple most of the steps are. So I think a good middle ground for now is to have one file per phase. So ingestion, ideation, and production. So let's tell Claude to do that. Okay, so I'm just saying steps.py is getting a bit long and unwieldy. Please break this up into multiple files, one per phase. Ingestion, fetch, triage, and extraction. Ideation, synthesis, and deep dive. And production, writer, visualizer, and image generator. This is simple enough that I don't think we need plan mode. Let's just kick this off. This will also help because as a bonus, we're going to implement podcast generation later, and this will add a couple more steps to the pipeline. So having things factored a bit cleaner will be helpful at that point. Okay, looks like it's done. We'll take a quick look. So steps.py is deleted. Instead, we now have these three. So we'll start with ingestion. That's the first couple of steps. So there we have the fetch step, triage step, and the extraction step. And then we have ideation for synthesis and deep dive, and production for the writer and the image step. And then here, that's just changing imports and stuff. So this looks good. Let's run the tests ourselves just to make sure. Okay, looks good. I don't think we need to run the pipeline. We'll test it after we implement the next step. Just wanted to do this quick refactoring. Check everything in. Okay. So next, let's make some improvements to our image generation. While our images look totally fine, and we already suggest a different style for each archetype. If you remember, we have a different style for meta trends, friction points, and rabbit holes down here. You'll likely find over time that you'll see a bunch of repeated themes, repeated metaphors, and the styles will feel a little bit too similar. Now, one very simple solution is to actually define multiple possible style guidelines for each archetype, and then randomly choose one every time. Feel free to try this out with your own prompt. If you have any specific ideas for styles, feel free to toss them in there. Maybe brainstorm with Claude or Gemini or whatever to see what styles might work best for your use case, and then see if you can implement this random style approach. I'll start a new chat. Okay, so here's my prompt. This is actually what I use in production. I'm not tossing all the details in here from my production prompt. I'm actually hoping that Claude can infer that and add the necessary details itself. So I'll just toss some style names in here, if you will. So add more image variety by defining 3 possible styles for each archetype, then randomly picking one to use. Suggested variations. For meta trend, dark glass morphism. That's likely pretty similar to what we have, right? It already mentions kind of a dark, techie aesthetic, glass morphism effects, and so on. I think that's generally a pretty nice style, but you don't want to see it all the time. So dark glass morphism, cosmic data nebula, and liquid chrome currents. Then for the friction point, where we currently have this kind of industrial structured look with geometric grids and so on, here we're going to suggest either industrial cyberstructure, mechanical tension, or brutalist neon contrast. And then finally, for the rabbit hole, here we have a whole bunch of different options, right? We're saying it should be playful or abstract. It should use soft 3D renders, paper cutout textures, or illustrated elements. So that's a lot to choose from. We can make this more explicit and just prescribe one random from these three. So we have soft 3D clay morphism. I really like that style actually, as well as the next one, abstract paper cutout. These are probably my favorite styles, to be honest. But miniature diorama is also pretty cool. It usually comes up with some neat effects here. And then I'm telling it to flesh each style out with specific guidelines for visuals, background, palette, and mood. Let's do plan mode here. We could just try to do it, as a one-shot and then iterate. So either is probably fine. Okay, there's our plan. Let's take a quick look. The goal is pretty clear. Here it says which file and lines we need to update. Okay, so 3 detailed style strings. So in here it came up with some nice descriptions for each style. Dark glass morphism, frosted glass panels layered over deep black or navy, neon cyan and violet glows bleeding through translucent surfaces, subtle hexagonal grid texture, cool luminescent mood of a high-tech control room. And then here we have swirling galactic dust clouds in indigo and teal, rendered as abstract data streams, glowing particle trails forming orbital arcs, pitch black and void background, awe-inspiring and infinite mood. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of these in detail, but I like the level of detail that it proposes here in the plan. Let's take another quick skim through. Yeah, that's really nice and evocative. So for industrial cyberstructure, it describes exposed steel I-beams and ductwork overlaid with holographic blueprint wireframes, oxidized orange and gunmetal palette, harsh directional lighting, very cool. And then for mechanical tension, we have interlocked gears and ratchet mechanisms under strain, a charcoal background, very cool. Clay morphism is pretty clear, using saturated pastels, abstract paper cutout, stacked silhouettes, terracotta tones, okay. And then miniature diorama, hyper-detailed tilt-shift photograph aesthetic of a tiny world in a diorama box, warm golden hour lighting, lush micro-scale details, whimsical and surprising mood. Cool. I could play with these for hours and just see what it generates for all of these examples. But, over time, you'll be able to observe this yourself with your pipeline. Then, yeah, we update this to randomly select a style based on the chosen archetype. Looks good. Let's run this. That was super quick. Code should be pretty clear as well. Okay, so for meta trend, right, instead of just this one pretty terse style, we now have a list of 3. Same with friction point and rabbit hole. And then down here, we just randomly select one. Okay, let's see how this works. So run our tests. Okay, we'll run the pipeline a couple times so I can show some examples. Okay, so this run finished. Let's quickly look at the newsletter post itself. So we have an idea what this image actually symbolizes. So it's something about strength training, lifting. Okay, I think we had a similar idea already. All right. Oh, I love this actually. So that's clearly the clay morphism style. So we must have a rabbit hole idea here and the clay morphism. This is one of my favorite styles. Really like the colors and kind of the playful clay art. Let's kick off another one. Okay, let's see what we picked here. Looks like this should be a friction point, something about AI-powered code verification. So here's the post, something about AI coding, code quality. Huh. You thought GitHub Copilot was your new junior developer. Instead, it's an overconfident intern who writes code that looks right, but is riddled with subtle bugs, security holes, and anti-patterns. Okay, hot take. Let's take a look at the header image. Ooh, very cool. I wonder which style this is. Let's take a quick look here at the friction point. I'm guessing it might be the industrial cyber structure, right? Because we have these steel beams here. It's just this sort of glowing orb, kind of like a Star Trek warp core in the middle. But I'm guessing that's probably it. Actually, I wonder if it printed that in the terminal. The caption is pretty telling. Industrial cyber structure under immense focused pressure. So I think that's pretty clear. Just because I'm nitpicky, I'm going to tell Claude to add a little bit more logging here. Can be super terse here. Please log the chosen style. Okay, perfect. We should see the log now. I don't need to test this. Just a print statement. So let's commit this. And that's really all I wanted to show here. Yeah, so combining deterministic and random logic together and feeding that into our LLM prompts can be surprisingly effective at getting, good variety. This approach also works really good for naming. I will leave this as an exercise for you, but for example, I employ this technique in my production pipeline to randomly select between different naming styles for my hypothetical startups. For example, I propose either Latin or Greek roots, abstract sci-fi, compound nouns, right? Something like snap, chat, or whatever, misspellings, or botanical and organic names. So simply provide a few examples for each style, then pick one and pass it into the deep dive step when you're developing the business model. That's it for this video.